Welcome to the History of Assyria channel. The earliest source in history indicating that women wear headscarves is a law from the Middle Assyrian period, dating back to between 1400 to 1100 BC. These laws were very strict in applying moral codes. These laws went into precise detail about who was allowed to wear a headscarf and who was not. These laws were based on the social class, rank, and profession of women. For example, slaves and prostitutes were forbidden to wear any kind of headscarf and faced severe penalties if they did. Any prostitute found wearing a headscarf faces 50 blows with a stick. Any man who fails to report a woman without a headdress faces 50 blows with a stick and is enslaved for a month. Slave females had a worse situation. Any enslaved woman who is found wearing a headdress had her ears cut off. In Assyria, wearing a headscarf was not just a sign of social class, it was used to distinguish between women who were considered respectable from women who were not. Similar but less stringent laws existed in Greece, Rome, and the Middle Ages, in Europe and the Middle East. That is, the headscarves for women were common before the advent of Christianity and Islam. In Judaism and Christianity, there are strict references to the necessity of modesty in men and women. All Christian icons depicted women wearing headscarves. In the first epistle to the Corinthians, the Apostle Paul spoke of the head covering of women in the church as a symbol of submission to divine authority. This is why women in Catholic and Orthodox denominations wear headscarves during worship in churches. Muslim Arabs were naturally influenced by Christianity and Judaism and emphasized modesty for men and women, but there is no clear reference in the Quran to women wearing headscarves. Until the beginning of the 20th century, headscarves were prevalent almost all over the world, and it is almost impossible to find any images of women or even men in public without any kind of head cover. For women, in particular, headscarves were more of a social tradition than a religious obligation, probably because of the difficulty of styling hair and taking care of it on a daily basis before the invention of modern hair care tools and cosmetics. Therefore, the use of the head covers gradually decreased, but with the continued modesty of the body, after the First World War with the spread of the fashion for different hair designs for women, and the spread of the use of hair care tools and cosmetics, and also after the emergence of women's suffrage movements in the early 20th century in some Western countries. This includes Arab and Muslim-majority countries as well, as shown in films and documentaries of these countries in the 40s until the end of the 70s of the 20th century. Modesty was prevalent, as was the case in the West at the time, and the headscarf was limited to some groups of women, especially the elderly. The majority of women appeared without headscarves, especially in universities, to the point that Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, in a speech in the 60s, belittled the demands to impose the headscarf on all women in public places and considered them illogical. The head covers have sometimes been used for political purposes, such as the Black Civil Rights Movement in America, which used its own hats. The Cuban Revolution also used beret hats. In Argentina, when child abductions were rampant in the 70s, women who had lost their children wore white headscarves tied below the chin. The headscarf for women returned with the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, when laws were made mandating the wearing of headscarves for all women by force. Because of the attempt of the new regime in Iran, which adopted the Twelver Shiite doctrine to spread the Islamic Revolution to other countries, Sunni movements also emerged from Saudi Arabia, which adopts the Hanbali Sunni doctrine, calling for the spread of an Islamic revolution that would impose the hijab on all women. The forced veiling laws and policies of the 1980s and 1990s in most Muslim-majority countries led to the emergence of the phenomenon of veiling girls at a time when their mothers were not veiled in the past. The hijab has often become more of a political and sectarian symbol than a religious symbol or garb. This revolution also caused waves of extremism and violence, violent persecutions, forced displacement against minorities, and the fight against modernity and modern modesty. There is also a widespread misconception in the West that the hijab or head covering is an exclusively Islamic dress. With the emergence of women's sexual liberation movements in the West in the 70s, which were contrary to the Islamic Revolution in exaggerating women's freedom, a misconception emerged in the East that indecency was a manifestation of Christianity. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to subscribe to the History of Assyria channel to follow all new